This is a Frister Rossmann Model 35. It came out of my neighbour's loft, and they brought it in for me to have a look at, see if there was anything I could do with it. Sadly, it's a really strong machine. It's a 15 class oscillating shuttle, all metal except for one plastic gear, and wouldn't you know, it's that one plastic gear that broke. So that basically put this machine to the scrap, because the gear is just not available anymore. You can't buy them, and you might be able to find one online from a scrap model or somewhere, but it becomes very difficult. So what I've done is I've tried a repair. Don't know if you can see that. Let's put it down there and see if I can zoom in. So you can clearly see the crack there, and it's the usual situation where I don't know if the plastic actually shrinks over time, but I think part of the problem is the heat from the bulb warming up the machine when it's been used and left on for any time causes the metal to expand and contract, and then possibly some shrinkage in the plastic, and eventually it splits, because they never seem to go back on. So what I've done a couple of times in the past now is ground down the metal underneath until I could get the plastic to wrap around it again, and then epoxied the plastic back on. So I have tried this repair on a couple of bigger pinions, ones that were driving cam stacks, but I've never tried it on a more of a kind of main drive pinion like this one. So this is driving the zigzag. But as the machine is basically scrap, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I've tried a repair, and what I'm thinking of doing is seeing if I can do a couple of adaptations on this machine to make it a bit more heavy duty, and see what we can manage with it. So watch this space, see what happens with this old beast of a thing. This machine was scrap. This is the one that had the broken gear. Only one plastic gear in the whole machine, and it broke. So I've repaired the gear with epoxy, and I have done a few modifications to the machine to make it a little bit more heavy duty. So I've changed the drive to give it more torque. I've changed the presser foot spring to give it more power, and I've modified the hook so it will accept a bigger thread. So I'm now running it so I've got V92 in the bobbin and V92 on the top, and I've also made a little modification so it'll run a big spool a big cone rather than having a spool on top. So let's see how it will manage. So this is an old sail from a historic tall ship. So a very strong, heavy sail fabric, which most domestics that I've made use of don't manage. So we'll see how she goes. So it has a number 20 needle in it. Doing a zigzag as a bit of an overlock. I want to keep this fluffy end for its decorative effect. So there's the first zigzag. So top tension's a little slack, so I'll just crank up that top tension a little bit. this machine basically has the same drive mechanism as a sailrite. It's the 15 class hook with a zigzag mechanism on it, and it is, as I say, it is basically the same mechanism as the sailrite. It's a little bit better. Okay, we're now going to do a little bit of a decorative hem, which now means 2 layers. I'll just go a straight stitch for this one. So it's quite nice, the gearing makes it a little slower and a little bit more controllable. So you can see here how I've modified the gear. I've just I've put a belt groove in the hand wheel, which is a much bigger diameter than the original pulley. And it's a 0.445 amp motor, so it has a little bit more power than the 0.3 amp. So 2 layers of this fabric, it's managing no problem at all. Okay, so let's try top stitching a semi-flat seam. Oops. So this is now 3 layers. And it's 3 layers right on a bend. So that is a pretty tough ask. Struggle to get drive at the beginning there, but that's okay. Yeah, that's definitely okay. Let's run an extra stitch down that. Go. Okay, so to get this seam along the bottom of here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers, which goes up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 layers. So it's 6 layers at this bottom section. I think it's going to struggle with that. I can't get that through by hand. Let's have a try. No. So 6 layers is too much for it. Okay, I've changed the design to drop it down to 4 layers for this section. Okay, so we're going to try momentum. We can, I know we can saw through 2 layers, so we'll get running on 2, and then we'll try to run it over the edge onto the thicker fabric. Oh, no bother at all. Look at that. So I couldn't start it on the very thick fabric, but once the machine was going and it had momentum, the flywheel effect got it through. So it takes a bit of work, but it does actually do it. So let's try the same at this end. So I'm going to start on the 2 layers. And that went right up to 4 layers without any problem once it was moving. And we've got the same down here. So there you go. 4 layers of heavy sail fabric possible now with this machine. So again, this is more of the heavy sail fabric. Just going to try making a couple of little handles for that little bag I've just made. So this is 3 layers, just making a little zigzag loop. Zigzag loop? Using a zigzag to make a little loop. It even sounds a bit like a sailrite when you're using it. Okay, let's do little handles. And let's manage them, no problem. So this will be a bigger ask. So we've now got to get the 3 layers of this and the 2 layers of this together and get a stitch through that. And I'd like to get more than 1 seam through that. Well, there you go, actually, it managed that no problem at all. So that was a scrap machine. Now not only working again, but it's managed to sew both zigzag and straight stitch through up to 5 layers of this. And this is a very heavy sail fabric, as I say, from a historic tall ship. It's a synthetic fabric, but yeah, very tough. Well done, old Frister and Rossmann. So there it is, Frister and Rossmann 35, heavy duty, and it definitely is. So there you go, you can see the modification I've done on the hand wheel. It's got a belt groove in it, but the original belt groove is still there if it wanted to be transferred back. So on the back I've made a little bit of a thread tree, so we can use a cone, and the cone can just sit there behind the machine. And modification on the other end, so all I've done, whoa, that's bright, took out the fitted spring. So this was the presser foot spring, so I've replaced that with a presser foot spring, a heavy duty presser foot spring from a Singer 20U, which drops in there absolutely fine and gives it a lot more pressure. As far as the tension is concerned, I found there was enough tension with the existing spring, so I haven't needed to add another one on there. The only thing I've done, because there's no spool and the thread is coming from above, I've taken an extra turn around that thread guide just to give it a little bit more control, because I was having a little bit of an issue with it jumping out of the spring. Jumping out of the tension discs. But there you go. So that is Frister and Rossmann 35, now heavy duty machine.